can I look at you? Are we waiting on Mike, Paula? Do you know?
Yeah, Mike is joining. Let me see if I can go grab him.
We
And
could
hi,
do the
Paula.
minutes while we're waiting.
Hello.
Yeah, Rob, why don't you call us to order and do the minutes and all that good
Yeah.
stuff?
I'll call this meeting of the Passenger Rail Committee to order at 2:03 p.m. And our first item on the agenda is the minutes of the February 11th meeting. Does anybody have any questions or discussion about those minutes? All right,
I move to
hearing
approve.
none, I will ask for a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
I've got a motion by, who was that? Was that Brian?
Yep, Duxbury, Brian.
Duxbury, Brian, okay. And second?
Seconded. This is Bruce
Okay.
from
Isabella, did you
Harvard.
get the second? All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye. Raise your
Aye.
aye. Any opposed? None. Oh, and just a reminder, everybody put your name and affiliation in the chat so Isabella can do the minutes. Thank you. As a matter of, all right. Are we ready? So the next item is the MBTA, our standard MBTA Keolis updates. Are we ready to start that?
So
Alana, you or should we?
Hi. So I'm sitting next to Dave Walker, so I'll unmute my computer, but Dave will be the one talking. I'm going to try and share my screen so that way I can share the slides for everyone. Does that work? Let's see if we can.
Right. And I see, excuse me, I see Mike. Is Mike on as well now from the MBTA? I don't know who wanted to start this. I guess you guys can start it and then we'll go over to Mike. All right, go ahead.
Mike, we can't hear you.
Who can't hear who?
Mike Muller was trying to talk
Okay.
to kick us off, so I think he's trying to fix it.
Oh, okay. Well, do you guys want to go while Mike's doing that?
Yeah, I think he said go ahead, start.
Right. Okay.
Okay, we good? So yeah, as Alana said, I'm Dave Walker. I'm the Vice President of Service Delivery, so I'm filling in for John Clean today. We've got the sort of, I gather, the usual slide deck. So the last 12 months of performance look back. I think the key thing since your last meeting is in January and February, we had two very severe storm events. So at the January, we had the both very heavy snowfall and then 10 days of sort of extreme cold. This is actually the most severe sort of sustained period of cold and snowfall on the ground since 2015. And that had a very significant effect on performance in January. So in the week after that 26th of January storm event, we had a large number of cancellations. That's obviously something clearly something we wouldn't have wanted, and there was a huge amount of work went in from the team. So the next slide will cover off that snow event, and then similarly in February we all experienced the record-breaking snowfall, particularly to the south of the network. So in the on the new South Coast Rail area, where large amounts of snowfall were reached record-breaking levels on parts of the Providence Line, Fall River, New Bedford, and Greenbush, that also had a very significant effect in February. So those are the sort of standout trends that we've seen since your last meeting. I think the key lessons learned from the winter storm, as I said, there was an enormous effort by our workforce, both in terms of the preparation and also just the volume of activity in terms of snow clearance across all of our facilities, the network, parking lots, and everywhere we operate. the volume of snow, particularly for that second snow event, was enormous, and we had sort of teams out for 3 days straight clearing snow levels. So it was a huge effort by everybody. Similarly, our mechanical team, as sort of everyone will be aware, the amount of snow affecting our equipment meant a huge effort by the mechanical team in thawing out and repairing the effects of that. We found that we ran the severe weather schedules, so the significantly reduced schedules. We ran them on the day of the first storm on the 26th of January, and we also ran it for 2 days on that second storm in February. I think our impression was that those worked very positively. They have two effects. One, I think the big benefit for riders is that they get a predictable level of service that we know we can operate in those sort of events. And the other is it helps our engineering and mechanical teams enormously in giving the time and space to clear the volume of snow and make the repairs that we needed to. So we found that to be a sort of positive. We got quite a lot of sort of, in the circumstances, relatively positive rider feedback on the predictability of the service and the way we communicated that out. And I think that third point as well, what we've seen is over the last sort of 10 years, particularly since the last time we had weather events at this level in 2015, we've seen a huge improvement in the sort of infrastructure reliability, a huge investment by the MBTA in gas switch heaters, heavy snow fighting equipment, all of that. And the sort of the newest one for this year was there's a sort of warming shed at just outside South Station, where locos that have essentially frozen from the amount of snow being driven into them, we can take the locos out to that warming shed, and they get warmed up, thawed out, and our mechanical team can then repair any effects. So all of that really sustained structural investment by the T has made a huge difference and was very beneficial across the network, given the sort of scale of the both cold and snowfall we experienced. And I think the fourth thing, as I'm sure everyone would expect, we wanted to, we draw out is there's, given the severity of the conditions, there was a huge push across the organization in terms of safety, people driving in very severe conditions, and some of our equipment and vehicles themselves getting stuck in the snow. And so we've really done a lot of work over, particularly in the lessons learned from that first event into the second event, in just dialing up even more than we normally would, that emphasis on safety, the equipment, and people taking time to work safely in some really dreadfully difficult conditions. And so all of those lessons that we've done between the first storm and the second storm, we've really applied some of those learnings to try and sort of see an improvement in performance as we go for these sort of really, really exceptional events. The last thing we want to touch on was the fare gates that we installed at South Station that went live at the end of December. So the testing and commissioning phase of those gates is nearly complete. Generally, the trend is one we would have expected. So the gates, like so much of our network, was slightly affected by the storm events. There was a lot of snow around at South Station. That was something that was a challenge. We in the MBTA are doing a huge amount of work with the gate manufacturer to sort of deliver the level of reliability that we would all expect. We're working very collaboratively with them to see all of the gates fully in use and fully delivering the uptime that we would expect to see. I think the positive and the underlying logic of why fare gates are being installed was to enhance the consistency of revenue collection, overcome some of the challenges of checking tickets on very crowded trains, for example. And we've really, in the first 2 months, seen that as a significant positive. So the stat we've got there, where there's a 40% increase in M-ticket activations on the south side of the network compared to last year. So that was something we saw when we deployed gates at North Station. The trend is a very positive one, and I think it's what we all expected to see, that this is exactly why this project was being delivered, and those very initial numbers from those first 2 months are exactly what we expect to see, and show that the initiative is really delivering what we were hoping for and moving in the right direction. Was that the last one?
Yes.
Yeah. So So that was the last slide of the brief run through. Mike, is there anything you want to add to that I missed, or anything you want to sort of expand?
Yeah, Mike, sorry, we still can't hear you. Maybe if you want to type in the chat, someone can read it out loud. Or I can use my mental telepathy. You can.
Oh, unmute. Well, maybe we can, maybe Mike can comment when he does his part of the presentation if he's, sometimes just signing out and coming back in fixes it, but I don't know. I did have a question while we're waiting for Mike. What is, when you say M-ticket activation, does that equate to revenue? What's the relationship?
No, so not exactly. For example, a monthly pass that someone has purchased on M-ticket, whether they activate once or 20 times, they've already paid for that ticket. So it doesn't exactly equate to revenue. The reason we look at activations is it's the sort of the kind of richest data set that we have for ticket use on commuter rail. So it won't necessarily equate to a 40% increase in revenue. What it does show is that the direction is one of increased revenue collection. So it's the direction of change rather than the absolute percentage is the key thing with that sort of number.
Because people would activate their pass if they had to, but otherwise they wouldn't, right? So
yes, and so in most circumstances, of course, we've done a lot of work over the past few years with our conductors and ticket agents improving the consistency of collection. But you're right that this will make someone activate their monthly pass every time, where before they might not always have done so. But so it shows that the direction of revenue change will be sort of positive from the gate.
What about now?
Oh, great. Go ahead, Mike.
Sometimes, just like the 90s, you just have to reboot it.
Exactly.
I was so preoccupied with the microphone, I'm not sure I heard everything that Dave said, but I also don't know what I missed here. So are
He
there
talked about the storm and the fare gates, basically.
Okay. So, we understand that just like what we saw at North Station, that the introduction of the fare gates can be a source of annoyance for the customers. And we are working very closely with the manufacturer to keep them up and running and continue troubleshooting. And they are actually much improved from the initial go live date, which was our experience on the north side as well. But as you can see here from the last bullet, the bottom line is it's working. It's having the intended effect, which is that more people are activating their M tickets and we're collecting more revenue.
Great, thanks. Questions or thoughts from committee members on these subjects? Brian?
Thank you, Rob. Just Ozzy from Maynard asks in the chat, how did we do on clearing commuter rail parking lots by time of first train?
Generally, most park. Sorry, Mike, do you want to take that one?
No, you can. I assume we're talking about the snowstorm, the most recent one.
Yeah.
So generally, most locations had one or even two runs of snow clearance by the first train. The challenge we have, which I think the question is probably relevant to, is that the sheer volume of snow at some lots meant it took 2, 3, or even 4 sort of efforts to clear all of them. So we were generally pretty pleased with the progress. Between that first storm and that second storm, we did a really detailed lessons learned, both us and the MBTA, on some things we could improve in terms of where equipment was deployed to parking lots and some of the clearance plans. But overall, it went pretty well. The volume of snow was just the challenge, in that we then, of course, had a couple of days where we were having to position snow piles to sort of fully clear the lots. One thing we did do that we sort of worked with the MBTA parking team on is a plan where at some locations the plan is deliberately to clear a large part of the lot straight away before service on the day of the storm, and then come back later in the following day to clear others, so that every station has sufficient spaces available, and then we finish clearing later on in the day. So that's a sort of deliberate effort in some places to partially clear lots and then move on to the others to get everything going by the first train.
I applaud that methodology, especially assuming on heavy weather days you might not be getting full parking lot utilization. Can I ask a quick follow-up?
Sure.
How goes the relationship with MassDOT Highway Department as well as key municipalities about reducing salt application at grade crossings in order to reduce damage to your crossing equipment?
It's not perfect. That we still, I would say that most, MassDOT and most municipal DPWs have kind of gotten the memo, and I think do the best they can. But it's not completely within their control either, particularly when the snow starts to melt, and it carries roadway salt from places where they did salt into the crossing. And so very often we see crossing issues emerge in the days following a storm, right? And maybe not so much the day of the storm. So I think it's effective, the messaging that we do and the letters that we send, but we still end up seeing issues. And then, of course, you know, a lot of municipalities use contractors when there's major storm events, and the message may not perfectly filter down to them, right?
Appreciate your honesty in the comment on contractors. Have you considered deploying signs at some of those locations?
We have. I'll let Dave and Alana speak more to that, but it's a recent thing. It kind of boggles the mind why we didn't think of this before. But, you know, when you're out driving various places, you see a sign before a bridge or an overpass that says this is a no salt area. Sometimes you see along wetlands, it'll say it's a no salt area or other protected land. So we're starting to install that signage at crossings as well. Key locations. Dave, Alana, I don't know if you have any more you want to say about that.
Yeah, I think it did seem the analysis the team was doing on salt events at crossings, as Mike says, there's been a definite improvement. It's not a universal thing, but we've definitely seen a sort of measurable improvement in the kind of reduction of contamination events at crossings. So it helps. It's not perfect, but I think similarly the feeling was that the signage does seem to make a difference.
Yeah. I think all I'll add is first off, credit where it's due. A lot of that work is led by Sherry Warrington and her team who are on the call. And if there's any interest in adding those signs to crossings that are in your municipality and you'd like to work with us and the MBTA, please, that could be a follow-up from this call. We're always looking to expand that program, right? Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for your efforts and expertise.
All right, thanks. Other questions or thoughts? Do you guys have more in your presentation, or should we expand the subject? Okay. I just said, what about an update on the FIFA stuff in Foxborough? Anything new there? Is it all moving along okay? How are we looking with that?
I think there'll be some public announcements of schedules in the weeks to come. Not everything has been approved at the highest levels of the Commonwealth. And of course, there's a pretty broad public messaging campaign and stakeholder engagement campaign with groups like yourselves that's going to happen well in advance of the World Cup. We do have this friendly match coming up, which will serve as sort of like a dry run, like an opportunity to practice what we'll do on the 7 World Cup match days. But some of the things I can say more generally, we will be running up to about 14 special event trains, round trips just between South Station and Gillette to take FIFA match game ticket holders to the event. So there'll be a massive queuing operation at South Station on FIFA match days, and similarly at the other end at Gillette Stadium. And those trains will just go direct from South Station to Gillette. We're largely preserving as much of the regular train operation as we can with some modifications, which we'll talk about more broadly once we're able to announce it. But we'll basically do a schedule change for that whole FIFA period to to modify the schedule to essentially to enable us the capacity to use 14 trains specifically as special event trains.
I was going to say, Mike, I know Brian just hopped back on, but I think it would be beneficial, certainly, probably to do a full advisory board briefing just on FIFA. Obviously, our committee, Passenger Rail, certainly is following everything going on related to the Providence line and Foxborough Station and area impacts. But I think, we're starting to get a lot of questions from multiple committees. So I think definitely, we'll try to schedule something for you to be able to address the full advisory board at some point.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's understandable, right? Because it's getting close in June. You can understand that the Commonwealth has a communications plan more broadly about this, but it probably won't be me. So there are point people within the MBTA that are responsible for the entirety of the whole event, system-wide, including customer service, wayfinding, public messaging. So what we can do is make a connection and certainly the commuter rail schedule and service will be a key element of that, and we can speak to that, but I'm sure the folks you're hearing from have other questions that I probably can't even answer, or better answered by other people.
Just one quick question about scheduling, if I may. So beyond those sort of 14 trains, does Keolis have plans to either expand like the Providence line or the surrounding communities?
So there's no ability to expand service. We have the trains and the train crews that we have, just like everything else. So we're providing direct special event service to Gillette, and then we will be maintaining as close to regular service on the Providence line as possible, because we know that that's going to be a key corridor to keep open as well.
Thanks.
Thanks. Hannah, could you maybe explain us why that's important to Providence run in relation to that? Is that?
Sure. I'll just speak really quickly outside of my MBTA advisory board role, if I may, for 10 seconds. So I'm the vice chair of the Sharon Select Board, and I know that all of the surrounding communities, including my colleagues, keep asking about the impacts of the Providence line, because many people might take that rush hour train, let's say, from Boston to Sharon or Mansfield, and then Uber over to Gillette. So it's just something to keep in mind in terms of surrounding communities that do abut the Foxborough area, that will most certainly, I think, even from Providence, be using the line to get as close as they can if they're not taking that special event train.
We have taken it into account. It's a very real possibility. I think you're right that will happen, but we don't have any ability to add additional train service or capacity to the line. So more likely what you'll see is messaging from the leadership of the Commonwealth, kind of like what we said around the Sumner Tunnel closure and the Orange Line surge, that people that have the ability to work from home should work from home. People that have the ability to not go in on match days should make that choice if they can, fully sensitive to the fact that not everybody can make that choice. But not to make it negative, but it will be a period of disruption for regular commuters.
All right, thank you. I see Bruce has his hand up.
Yeah, and this is just a curiosity question. I don't know if it makes sense or not. If you said it only stops and starts at Boston and at Foxborough, is there any reason why we shouldn't consider maybe a stop at the 128 station for people who could park there and take the train?
Yeah, there's a bunch of reasons for that. A lot of it has to do with queuing, crowd control, security checks. It needs to be a very tight and secure operation. Okay. So you don't want any intermediate stops. So it'll really be South Station to Gillette only.
All right, thanks, Bruce. Is there an update on the station work? What's going on with that at Foxborough?
Away, and it will be ready. So the side, which we call it the temporary platform side, because right now it technically does have a temporary platform. At some point in the future, post World Cup, the intent is to put a permanent platform on that side. We just didn't have the time, the runway to do that in advance of the World Cup, the way that this thing got underway. But the stadium side, full high level platform will be completed in time for the World Cup. So,
okay,
Basically,
you.
what we'll have a two-sided platform station for the World Cup.
Okay. Any other questions on the World Cup traffic issue? I'll move on. I just Mike, do you have an update on the contract, the operating contract this process for us?
Just probably what you know that's been released in the public domain already, plus a little color. So the RFP has been released to the 3 qualified bidders. We went through a 2-stage process where we released a request for qualifications and then qualified 3 finalists. They received all the RFP documents. We're now in this period of bidder engagement where the bidders ask clarifying questions, do due diligence. Pretty soon we'll be scheduling site visits with the bidder teams to look at facilities, vehicles, things of that nature. There's a data room set up for the bidders to get all kinds of data and information about our operation and our performance that informs all of the work that they're doing, putting their bids together. The bids are due in the fall. We'll have to complete the evaluation and selection process roughly by the end of the calendar year. We'll take a recommendation to the leadership of the Commonwealth and the board and look to award as early as possible in January 2027, because the first 6 months of the year will be for mobilization and transition to a successor contract.
Right. And I know you can't say too much about it, but it seems like if you have 3 qualified bidders, that's good news. And are you guys fairly satisfied with the results of the RFP and the process so far?
Oh, yeah. And I can talk about it a little bit because this has been publicly released in the press release who the qualified bidders are. It's basically 3 teams, 3 consortiums made up of different operators and maintainers, all of whom had expressed interest during our RFI process. So basically, all 9 operator maintainers who expressed interest are participating in one way, shape, or form as part of the consortiums. And having 3 bidders, that's 1 bidder more than we've had every other time we've done this. So this is an improvement for sure.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And I guess it's a little early to know about funding amounts, and is that any indication, like, is it within the budget, or does the budget look realistic, or?
There's really no way to know, right? I mean, the bids are going to be what they are. We're doing all kinds of projecting and prognosticating, and certainly we can't broadcast publicly what the MBTA thinks the budget for this is, because that'll take the bid, right?
All right. Any other questions on this topic, or any others for Mike or Dave? Are the other folks from Keolis or MBTA?
Could you guys talk a little bit about Back Bay? I know that there have been a couple of safety concerns that I know came up when we were at the board of directors meeting, but also just the construction sort of that's going on over there relating to eventually the fare gates going in.
So when you talk about construction, there's potentially 2 different things you could be referring to. So the property management company, Boston Properties, is doing a concourse redevelopment project, which is going to unfold over a period of time, and that involves a lot more than the commuter rail concourse area. That'll include the Orange Line concourse area and like a lot of the space that's used by the public. We are planning and have always planned to install fare gates at Back Bay, also at Back Bay Station, similar to what's at North Station and South Station now. So we're in the planning, design, and permitting process for that. So Back Bay, and this is not dissimilar from what we experienced with South Station. The timing of having to coordinate with this concourse redevelopment project has complicated matters, right? When we first embarked on this Fairgate project a number of years ago, we thought South Station would be the easiest one to do and the first one done. And then the Heinz Air Rights project started and complicated matters because of passenger egress and things of that nature. You can't can't add more barriers to pedestrian flow while you're using the concourse space while there's an active construction project going on. Kind of same thing with Back Bay. Coordination with that project has sort of moved that one to the back of the queue, so that North Station, which was a bit of a tougher nut to crack in terms of pedestrian flow and passenger egress, that one went first. South Station had to wait to the end of that air rights project. Back Bay's not waiting to the end of the project, but we have to coordinate with the project about the timing to go in. So that's in the permitting process. But the other one that actually has jumped the queue and been added is Ruggles. So we'll be adding the same fare gates at Ruggles Station prior to Back Bay. And that's targeted for this spring.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Any other questions or comments for folks? We can let them go a little early then if and we could meet on our own if that's anything else from the committee members? Thoughts? Well, thank you for your presentation, Mike, and thanks for all you guys, all your work during that big storm. So that was
Thank you.
I was so upset I had to go to Puerto Rico for a week. So anyway.
It's all the fun.
Yeah. Well, no, I left actually afterwards, just got delayed like by a day with all the storm stuff, but it's good to hear. Anyway. All right, so we'll let you guys
Hello,
go
Mike.
and what's that?
I was just saying hello, Mike.
Okay.
Hello.
So we'll let these folks go, and then the committee can stay, and we can talk about our own committee business if that's okay with everyone. Hannah, Brian, anything else to add to their guys' stuff or?
No, I just I'm excited and heartened that we're doing this, and from conversations that I've had with other potential bidders and their representatives, it seems like there's a desire to continue doing this for whomever wins the bid. So which is exciting. And I we're embedding this committee and this process as part of the overall process, and that makes me happy.
Good. Good to hear. All right, thank you all for coming. And if committee and advisory board staff could stay for a few minutes, that'd be great. Well, thank you guys.
You all.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
I just had just a couple follow-ups from past meetings that I've been discussing, I think, with Hannah. We had some discussions about parking issues, and there's, I guess, 3 issues with parking. One is expansion, the other is solar panels, and the other is electrical charging stations. So Mike did give me the names of the parking folks, and I've been planning to follow up with them just to kind of get an idea on their scheduling and their thoughts on that, on all those kind of items. And so I just wanted to let folks know that. And I know Bruce has been a big proponent of expansion, especially at the Littleton lot. So I guess I see that as an ongoing issue, and I'll try to get some information. Just wanted to get a feeling from folks if it'd be good to bring the parking people back. I could see what their response is and how much we want to kind of push on those issues.
So Rob, if I might,
Sure.
This committee will be seeing and talking about the 27 to 31 capital improvement program, which is where the funding for the stuff you're talking about would be.
Yeah.
And so this committee will see that in April or May, depending on when the T releases it. And so what I would suggest we do is see if it's in the CIP, and if it's not, this committee could sort of, either authorize you to send a letter or an email, or just tell us informally that something like that should be included in the CIP committee's oversight report. And what we'll do there is we'll put it in, and when Mayor Keefe from Revere goes and sort of delivers that report to the T's board of directors, we can ask him to bring it up directly with them at their meeting in May.
Right. It seems like a good idea. Bruce?
Yeah, I don't know, Rob. I copied Hannah. I did some follow-up emails
Oh, you did? Okay.
after we met with the parking group, and
Yeah.
one of the things I sent was there's an organization that was having a webinar in early January, which is funded by the state to assist municipalities and government organizations in installing charging stations where they find it logistically difficult. And I reached out to them because he said to us that it was logistically really hard to do when he answered the question last time. And he basically wrote back and said, thanks, but no thanks. So I followed up that email to the chief operating officer who we had met with in September and said, is this what you were talking about when you said there's a lot of issues you've been trying to solve operationally over the last year? And he basically wrote back and said yes. I was hoping that might spur a little action on their part. Maybe I was overdoing it. But he looked at the answer I got from the parking head in the email, and I think had the same reaction I did. It was a non-response, like in the meeting, and agreed to try looking into it again. So I just wanted to have that background. If you're,
yeah, thanks.
I think
the expansion issue? Did you bring that up?
I didn't bring that one up in that email. The expansion issue is is going to be a capital issue. Someone's going to have to invest.
There's not going to be expansion of parking lots anywhere anytime soon. So don't even worry about it. There's a $25 billion backlog of capital needs.
Jesus.
Parking more cars at train stations is far from the top of the list.
Why is that, Brian? Because they're all revenue items.
10% of ridership is commuter rail. 90% is the rest of it. And the way it used to work was that commuter rail fare revenue was significantly greater and contributed almost 40% of total T revenue. That number has dropped to about 20%. So while I know everyone at the T appreciates that this is really, really important to lots and lots of people, the fact of the matter is that most people who take the T, take the core system, and that's where the focus is right now, because that's where the biggest bang for the buck is. With that said, as they do regional rail, that is the opportunity for this stuff to happen. And I think that's where this will happen, but that's a 10-year project.
So but these are revenue items. They could start charging parking fees and presumably make profit off it, or anybody could.
I doubt that the purchase of the land that would be required would ever make the money back within a reasonable amount of time, Rob.
Well,
and parking is down at a lot of stations, not everywhere, but at a lot of stations.
That's a good point. Yeah. But yours, Bruce, that Littleton one is still crowded, right?
Yeah, the Littleton one is filling up on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday now. So it's
not a crisis.
It's not what it was right before COVID. But it is to some extent a rate limiting factor on ridership. And so it's a revenue issue, I think, from a ridership perspective, from a parking lot fee perspective. I don't know that it's a big capital investment there, because I think the land is available adjacent to where it is. It may already be owned for all I know. But it's still I agree with Brian. It's a big capital investment. The charging stations are another story. That one, if they went to this program that I had sent them, there was money to pay for all of it, not just to do the logistics. And he was uninterested.
But Brian, what about the whole solar panel thing? That's another potential revenue climate change thing that they could be doing, but don't seem to be doing. Where does that fit in?
What tends to happen in these cases, and I don't know the specifics about this, is that the T approaches EEOH or whoever is running those programs and says, hey, we'd like to participate. And they say, not for you. We don't want to deal with you. You're part of the state. We'll get to you later. We want to deal with residents and voters and businesses. And so what probably happened, Bruce, I don't know, is Bruno talked to his folks at the Energy Department, and they said, no, we're not going to do it for you, T. Screw. And that's what happens, guys. I'm sorry. It's the
Yeah.
reality.
What about solar panels in that
Same
initiative?
thing. Same
Yeah.
thing. There's the tax credits are gone. The T doesn't pay taxes, so the tax credits never really helped it. It's just not economically viable for them to afford to do
But
it.
again, they could make money off those panels like any landowner
They
can.
never make enough money. As the biggest purchaser of electricity in Massachusetts, there's no way they could ever generate enough electricity to put a dent in what their electricity bill is.
Rob, I have some
Yeah.
involvement with solar energy right now. When you had the 30% subsidy that was available to municipalities when you couldn't get a tax credit, it was feasible to do canopy solar where you could actually break even. Canopy solar is much more expensive than a solar field, and without the subsidy that was under the IRA or the tax credit, it's not feasible. What you used to be able to do is go to a solar provider and they would basically sell you the electricity at a 10% discount if they put it in, if you didn't want to do a capital outlay. But they won't even do that for ground mount solar anymore.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I've just been getting not a lot, but a fair number of calls from the local sustainability people. Why isn't the T putting in solar panels? So anyway, okay. Any other items for the committee or past? Hannah, there was other things we were talking about. We wanted to keep on our radar screen. I know Ozzy, something about resources. What was that about? I saw in the minutes. You're going to do resources. Is he still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Do I have the mic? Got it.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
At a future meeting, to be honest, I would need to put a few slides together. When I was at Mass DOT, and caveat to our last discussion there, I'm now at the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. I was working on a mode shift tool, sort of a supplement to mass511.com that would help capture what the true cost of a car trip is. And the antidote I have is I'm a lot of fun at parties. You know, people will say they don't take the train from point A to point B because it costs $9 in parking and $21 for a round trip ticket. Costs very easy to calculate, but no one knows the cost of their car trip, right? We just don't think that way. What did it cost to take my Subaru or Tacoma? And it was something I became very much aware of when I owned both a pickup truck and a Toyota Prius, right? And so I was working on a mode shift calculator that captured the real cost of your trip based off the actual model of car you drove, where you live, traffic conditions, but it also tried to capture things like your carbon footprint and the user experience of time spent in the car versus on the train, reading a book, working your emails, et cetera, et cetera. And then a really in-depth analysis of where those trips start to break even, right? There are places that, you know, especially if you can walk 20 or 30 minutes to the commuter rail and be within 15-minute walk of your destination. So it was really kind of interesting thing. It's a project that's really kind of orphaned at Mass DOT since I left there. So I'm looking to kind of find somebody to energize it and get it going. I know a couple of vendors in the space that could build this black box that could then plug in to some other sort of travel prediction tool, Mass 511 being the ideal one, or this body could kind of spur MassDOT to get it going. I do have a conversation in the next 3 weeks. I'm blanking on his Chris Carter, I think, Chris, the MassDOT Chief Innovation Officer, who I'm just trying to kind of hand some of it off to him and a couple other projects that I was championing that got orphaned since I left. So there's some possibility there. I'll leave it to Brian too to see. Brian and I had a conversation on it probably almost 2 years ago, right, Brian? It seems like, and I
mean, I love it and I wish I could run with it. I just don't have the resources or the database to do what you were able to do. I hope someone at MassDOT picks this up, and I told Phil Lang about it. I'll keep trying to tell him.
And that was part of the problem, Brian. Actually, you know what? I might have a specific ask that you can action. Part of the challenge is that it lives between highway and the commuter rail, right? My job at highway was to get people off the highway onto other things, which was hard to do in highway, but commuter rail. I wonder if this body, Brian, if you would be willing, I intentionally didn't take the materials with me because of the cooling off period. You could public records my materials. I had a beautiful PowerPoint that went through the whole use case and everything.
Sure.
I could give you the verbiage for that if you'd be interested in doing that. And
yeah, if you give me
great.
the official name and a timeline, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, we'll do. I'll shoot you an email direct, and then maybe once we have that, we brief this group and get their thoughtful input.
Ozzy,
sounds good.
Ozzy, I wonder if this is something that would be picked up by a either a nonprofit or a bunch of grad students at MIT, because they've done stuff like that before with apps. And like they did some of their early apps that did commuter rail schedule, on time. And I'm thinking like the Union of Concerned Scientists, which has great relations with MIT, might find this to be exactly what they'd want to do.
Yeah, Bruce, so I did a lot of research and I found really already readily available public data sets and this way to combine them. And I kind of wrote the logic of who you would recommend to make the trip. And by the way, I think this group will appreciate it. I knew I was going to get someone from Barre, Massachusetts to take the train 5 days a week, but maybe I could get the person in Maynard to take the train 3 days a month, right? And showing what that change was. And one of the challenges I had, I was going to build it into Mass 511, which is one of my programs, but I was also wanting to make it an independent black box of code that anyone could plug into any other application to run. So for further discussion, yeah, but you're exactly right.
All right. Thank you, Ozzy. So I think that brings us to if there's to next month's agenda. Hannah, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
So I think as of now, we're scheduled to meet April 8th at 2 o'clock. That may be when Brian does CIP, depending on the timing. Brian, I'm gonna lean on you a little bit in terms of what you were thinking, but I know originally we were thinking April. That might mean that maybe we push our meeting even from the 8th to after sort of that April President's Week, if we know that the CIP is gonna be around. But Brian, did you have any thought to?
I think we'll be all right on the 8th. We're supposed to get it on March 26th, so it should be all right. Let's plan on talking about the CIP and all that good stuff on the 8th.
All right. Any other follow-up items? Yeah.
The T folks, as you know, they meet with us quarterly. So now that they met with us today, they probably won't meet with us until closer towards the summer. And then the other thing, as I mentioned before, we'll try to work on the full FIFA briefing with everybody.
Okay, that sounds good. So we've got CIP and perhaps some FIFA updates for our next meeting. Anything from committee members for their towns? I see David Martin is here from Acton, which is my alma mater, class of 73. Although, and any other, so welcome. I don't know if you've been here before. Let's see some of the other folks. Any other particular issues from the towns? I'm hoping that we can get more people to kind of attend. We're getting a little low on attendees. But any other thoughts from people before we adjourn?
Jane has her hand up from Reading.
Hi.
Oh, great. Jane, go ahead.
I'm Jane Loman, the acting town manager in Reading.
Oh.
My predecessor, Matt Pinellas, was relatively new to this group, but he and I worked very closely together for 10 years. And so I just wanted to introduce myself to the body. And this is very interesting. In my multiple roles, I've been elected and appointed. I've also been the chair of a regional planning agency, NIMCOG. And so I've done a lot of work in different spaces, but we have a lot going on in Reading. There was a turnback track issue, and so that got us more involved with town management and with the MBTA and with you folks, of course. So I'm grateful to be here and learn from you.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, welcome. And look for you may want, as you get busier and busier, find a good delegate to attend these meetings that can focus on these kind of this kind of stuff and report back to you and the select board or council. Okay. I don't know what you have in Reading, but
we have a select board. Yeah.
Select board. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
Anything else from anybody? All right. Well, then I guess I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Motion's been made and second to adjourn. All right. So motion's carried and we are now adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.